to go and get some pens just in case we want to write things. Also, Bjarke is one of the nicest LARP designers I know. Don't be shy, people. Just ask him anything.
Yes.
You've been thinking about.
Yeah, I've probably done most things. I've done LARP in basically any context. So from vampire campaign LARPing to international art festivals and coaching Disney and anything you can think of, I've probably done, which is a lot of fun and a great fun. The last LARP I did was at the Venice Biennial Festival for.
Oh, you did the Michelle thing.
Yeah, so
Michelle
that was a lot of fun.
Thing. Oh yeah.
So it was a 3-day LARP for 24 artists at an island in Venice. We had our own island.
I'll be moderator, shall I? Hang on.
Yes.
Panda.
Yes. Like, I don't know how this functions, but I am new to the LARP mentality. I understand a little bit about it. Is it possible if you give us like a rundown of the things that you've been involved in and how you got involved in LARP? Is that okay? Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Of course. So I was asked to go through a talk I did at the Knudpunkt conference in 2025. I have a billion slides. I have no idea how to get them in here. Is that possible at all to show stuff?
So actually, kind of, sort of. After your talk, we loved it so much that so we don't have a proper way of getting it in here, but I do have from last year a kind of sort of way that we can get your slides in here.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, sorta, not really. If you give me one moment.
No worries.
I did my best last time. But yes.
Silent is mostly responsible for making us aware of the talk and passing around the slides and things.
Yeah, and kind of, I think everybody carries their bit of the responsibility for that. It's been a chain reaction of things. I first met this crowd when they watched a Nordic LARP talk from Linköping.
Yeah.
That I was part of. And then Ames and May and Silan and eventually Neon reached out to me, and I've been stuck here ever since.
That's a lot. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can. Just give me a sec.
I believe I've shared the slides on Discord at some point. I could share them there again, but let me see if I can. I'm going to be right back.
When did you LARP your first LARP, Bjarke?
Oh, that must have been in 1993 or 4. I was at a tabletop festival in Denmark, and they ran a cyberpunk LARP at the school that the conference was at, and I think we were like 110 people playing. And Mike Pondsmith, the guy who is the lead writer on Cyberpunk 2020, was the guest of honor that year, so he was playing as well. And
cool.
That was sort of my first.
Yeah.
And then the next one I played was in 1999 when I moved to 97 when I moved to Copenhagen. I'm Danish, come from the countryside, and moved to Copenhagen to go to the university, and there I hooked up with the vampire crowd, and one of my fellow students invited me, and then I've been doing it ever since. So that's been a lot of fun. So that was my first, and I think I played like 2, and then I started organizing right away, or helping out.
Oh, did
organizing.
you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
For many years, I had organized more LARPs than I had played. So that was, the organizing has always been a part of it, and designing.
Yeah.
What got you into organization? What got you into the organizing side?
Well, I've playing tabletop role-playing games, I've always also come up with my own things, and this seemed like a continuation of that. So I just stepped into that space quite quickly, and it seemed like a complicated and daunting task, and then I hyper-focused on that for a few years. That was good times. Learned a lot of things about design that way, and realized, I think the first like Larp Design thing, I realized that if you make a rule, the players will use the rule.
Yeah. Maybe in imaginative ways sometimes.
Yes, and if you just port over, for example, Vampire the Masquerade rules into a Larp setting, and you play it perversively on the streets of Copenhagen, and you have rules for making bombs, then somebody will make something that looks like a bomb.
Yeah.
And then they will forget it in the Copenhagen metro.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
it
somebody will
becomes a bit
find
of a
that
thing.
bomb in the metro.
Yeah.
Very luckily, it was other players who found the bomb in the metro and took it back to us. But that could have ended up very, very poorly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you don't want bombs in your life, don't make rules for bombs. That's sort of the...
I think it's funny because we kind of just missed each other. I kind of stopped LARPing when you got into LARPing, and you were part of the interesting development when all sorts of interesting things started happening in the Nordic countries with design. And that's when I kind of moved out of it for a bit, deciding to, cut my hair and get a job. And then when I came back, it was a whole different scene. It was, and all of these things had happened. It was really, quite the thing. And then Knutepunkt was a thing, and everybody was talking about design and writing articles and stuff.
Yeah, and I think the development in the Nordic countries, you probably have talked about this, but is that when people met from Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland, and had to figure out how to talk about the LARPs that they've made, they realized quite quickly that they didn't have like a common language. So did you say role or did you say character or whatever? And what does that actually mean? So you had to define a lot of things to be able to talk together. And I think that's why a lot of like the way we talk about LARP in the Nordic countries comes like out of that necessity that we had to truly understand that we were talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Also, since we had to speak in English, because the Finns, of course, couldn't understand Swedish or Norwegian, and most of the Danes couldn't understand Swedish or Norwegian either. So
it's not like the Swedes or it's the Finns.
It's not the rest of us. No. And so we spoke English, and since it's not our first language, again, then definitions becomes quite important.
Yeah.
So
are you putting your hand up, Céline? Or are you just resting it?
I am petting my cat, though my cat is right here, and I am petting her. I will say, I literally, when you mentioned if there was any way to get the slides in here, I had just I did not remember this before, but I had just remembered that I did make a way to get the slides in here last year. It is very, I suppose, limited in that there is no easy way to skip around. It's a video, so we need to wait to go forward slides, and there's no easy way to go back.
Okay.
So, but it is there if you would like to refer to some slides. There's no easy way to skip around, though.
Cat Girl Eddie has a question.
Yeah. Oh, this is my full government name, I see. My question was mostly that when you were starting out, was there a driving norm or factor or commonality in the LARP scene that kind of pushed you to move into the designing side? That kind of something you wanted changed or something you wanted done differently that kind of initially pulled you in?
Well, it started with like a lot of the LARPers just started out playing in various fantasy campaigns. And I never did that. I played a lot of vampire tabletop, and then there was this live LARP version of it, and that was sort of my focus for 2 or 3 years. And then I realized that I wanted to do like a big standalone LARP with some context other than vampire, and I didn't want to do we didn't want to do fantasy. I enjoy reading it, but it's just. There was so much stuff happening there, And then randomly, one of my friends said that her uncle ran a harbor in the southern parts of Denmark, and they had an old Soviet submarine lying there. And if we wanted to use that for anything, and then we jumped on that and made like a more simulist 1963, just before the Cuban Missile Crisis, Larp. And this must have been in like 2003, and of course the Soviet Union had toppled at that time, and in the Ukraine was the base of this, like the Black Sea Fleet, and the ex-Soviet soldiers there were selling out the uniforms and gear from like the back door. And in the early internet days, we wire transferred money to the Ukraine, and then we got like 5 pallets of authentic uniforms.
Wow.
And then we those were the days for like nothing. And then we rigged the submarine with technology to make it sound like it was underwater and so on. And then we played 3 runs of that live. Learned a lot, and it was. For some people, it was the best lap they've ever played, and for other people, the equal amount, it was the worst lap they've ever played. So
Very
sort of uneven distribution of play, and that was one of the things I learned from that. That you need to have equal opportunity for play, not the same play, but the sort of intensity or the quality of it needs to be the same. Whether you're on the bridge of the submarine or you're in the back torpedo room and just sitting and waiting and being cold for 12 hours. That's not a lot of good lapping. So that's where you need to focus. People on the bridge will always have something to do. So always look at those parts where people are, where the sort of the interaction scripts are weakest, because that's where you need to put your energy, basically. So, and then it branched out from there, I think, and then just wanted to try out all the different aspects of it, and pushing the medium or the art form. And of course, anything you can lab anything as long as you make sure that the players and yourself are safe.
Yeah, and safe. Yeah, what is safe? And
and that's very different from person to person. I don't think we can agree on that. Like, there's a Czech LARP called Legion, a Serbian story, which is about Czech partisans on the Eastern Front going home from Soviet Russia, and everybody wants to kill them, basically. And it's played in the wintertime in the Czech Republic, so it's like really cold and like at least a feet of snow. And you can play it in either the regular version or what is called Relentless. And Relentless, then you need to bring everything for the lab in your backpack. And of course, everything has to be of the time. So you can't have modern sleeping bags and so on. So it's like a lot of snow and walking outside and cooking your own food. And I think you walked like something like 20 miles over 2 days.
Yeah, it's
on
long
rough
day,
terrain.
apparently. Yeah.
Like, that's not safe for me at all. I don't want to play that. But for
I
other
would
people,
love to
that's
play
a
that
treat,
if
right?
it wasn't, I don't like pooping in the woods. It's not my thing at all.
In my old days, I'm way more champagne and soft bed kind of lapper. So
Yeah.
not pooping in the woods in freezing temperatures. No, that's not me.
Maximum immersion.
Should we move over to
Other
the big
people love
screen?
that shit. So
Shall we move over so we can watch the video? We'll leave the cozy fire behind, but it might be worth it.
I don't want to stand up.
I have this wish to provide
Yes.
an explanation
This is a video
of why
player of
it
video.
really
battles I made my bed frame.
I had it for a while.
Move slides, we need to hit
had such
play,
an impact
and then
on
we'll
us,
need to
right?
pause again very quickly when it
because
when it
the
flips
decades of
slides.
experience
Yeah.
your community had.
I'm working on getting like an actual interpretation system.
And
in here,
Bjarke
but
was
that is not
very
really
much one of the
No,
engines
don't worry about
behind
it.
that, the whole design shift.
It's wobbly.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Think what is that?
Press
Turn on it.
play.
you
Trying to sneak in.
Twisted one of the legs.
Without
it'll
blocking
probably work
anybody.
maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, this
There's
is
a
so
little
cute.
button
It's like
here.
we're
I
at the
can
cinema.
probably hit it.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
movie
needed.
nights.
Um,
This is nice.
Like if we,
Hello there.
there we go. But yeah, there's the play button right there. It's the second button at the bottom.
Mhm. I wonder if I pressed it.
I don't know if there is like only I can press it because I loaded the video. Maybe.
Yeah, go on then. Yeah,
I
you
think
do
it's
the
just you,
honors.
Simon.
I don't know, Jaffe, can you try?
Yeah, and nothing happens when I do it. Oh.
Okay, then maybe I need to transfer the
So
slides.
I can adjust the volume on the thing, but I can't press
Yeah,
play.
that's-
Oh, I think it's because you're the
there's,
server host.
I would
Yeah,
say the lock is
probably.
off, but it's still it won't
Hey,
let you move
Celine,
it.
do you
Interesting.
mind running the slides for us?
Okay, I will run the slides. Let me know when we need a new slide.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Hello,
It's you.
that's me. But yeah, now I'm 50. I'm married to Johanna. I have a 3-year-old now, Konstantin, who's been pestering me all day. It's been great fun. I work as a strategist for the audiovisual industries. So that's film, TV, and a little bit of games in the Skåne region of Sweden. My university degree is Egyptologist, which I haven't used professionally because there's not that
very
many
cool.
jobs. But if you want hieroglyphs read at some point, you can ask me. I'm rusty, but I can still do it. Yeah, I play flight and submarine simulators quite a bit. I like coffee and medals and rubies and other like boring, like things that I enjoy are very boring, white heteronormative, bearded man things like fountain pens and keyboards and watches. Yeah, it's
Basically
terribly
describes my
boring.
fiance.
Yeah.
So that's me, and I've been LARPing for a long time. Let's move on to next slide.
And it might take a second because it's
Yes, there it is.
Oh,
So these are some of
wow.
the titles of LARPs I've done. So we can just go through the photos. The top left-hand corner is Children's LARP. I was one of the founders of, I think, the biggest children's LARP organization in the world. I think there's like 1,700 members now. It's LARPing for 8 to 13-year-olds, primarily fantasy in the forest, and a few other things. And it had 20 years, 20-year anniversary last year, and now the city of Copenhagen has given us a house to hang out with all the kids. And the people who are running all of the LARPs now are they all played the campaigns way back when I was there. So I watched a lot of them grow up from being children, and now they are like adults with real jobs who still take kids out into the forest. So that's a lot of great fun. Below that is what is called the White Road, and it's a LARP about a specific homeless culture there is in Denmark, where people they're uniformed and they have a lot of rules. They don't get a name. They have to sleep out a whole year every night before they can get their name, and then they meet up at various like markets and festivals around the world. And we talked to the king, which was called Blackbird, and a very nice woman, if we were allowed to do that LARP, and she was like, yes, absolutely. And there was so we walked from Copenhagen to 50 kilometers to the sea to bury a friend, and interacted with the real world. So that was pervasive, and that's back in 2006. The next one at the top is level 5. I've done quite a few LARPs / performative participatory art pieces together with an American artist called Brody Condon. He's the guy in the yellow vest on the right. And this is based on something that was very big in the late 70s, early 80s called Erhard Seminars Training, or EST.
No,
Is that a hand?
we
Nope.
play Here's My Power Button, which I believe is
yeah.
one of Brody's. Yeah,
Yeah.
there.
Oh.
Celine, was it you who built a world for it? Yeah,
Wow.
It's a VRLARP also now.
Oh, very nice. And that's been run in the Hammer Museum in Los Angeles and in Liverpool and at the Berlin Biennial also. Below that is another one, the 25-fold manifestation that was at the Arnhem Sculpture Festival. And we had LARPers coming from all over Europe to this sculpture park where they worshipped all the other sculptures as gods that had manifested in this like sort of weird fantasy world. The one with the big cross is a black box LARP called In Your Hands I Rest, and it's a take on like rattlesnake Christian cult, suicide cult. So you sort of got ready to see if you had gone through all of your issues to meet the Lord, and you went to a podium and drank poison, and then if the light shone down from above, then you were dead and left the LARP. So it was about how can something that seems so crazy from outside a bubble seem the most natural thing to do when you are inside the bubble. Below that is House of Craving, which is a LARP I did together with Toolshed Edland and Danny Mai Wilson and Frida Sofie. And it's a LARP about a house that has been very lonely for a long, long time. And then the owners of the house, who have not been there for many years, they move in, and the house is very happy and wants
a little psychotic.
A little psychotic, crazy, and want to impose itself and all its dreams on their family. And Danny coined that this is a LARP. House of Craving is a LARP that exists inside the fantasies of a 15-year-old queer person. So it's all a 15-year-old queer person's sexual fantasies. So the house begins to impose itself on everybody. And then you play the family that sort of is assimilated or killed. So people move in the morning, and then at midnight they are killed or assimilated into the house. And then the next day, a new family arrives. And now the previous family is now the house. So there's 12 family members and there's 12 house players that then will impose their will on the next one. And then it goes on through 6 runs in 7 days. So new people come every day and gets assimilated into the house. It's a lot of fun and extremely overwhelming also, because they will control you no matter what you do. Let's just jump. The final one at the bottom right is Inside Hamlet, which I did a remake of. It's a lab from 2001, I think. And this time we did. It's basically the Hamlet story, but you expand the court of Claudius from. I think there's 16 characters in the play, and at the lab there's 100. Then the location is the real Castle Elsinore, for which Shakespeare wrote Hamlet for. So we lived inside Castle Elsinore and played the court of Claudius for 3 days. And since it is Shakespeare and a tragedy, then most people murder each other at the end. It's about a decadent court in the 30s, as if none of the noble houses of Europe had fallen in revolution before this time. And now the revolution runs rampant across the world. Everybody dies, of course. So that's some of the LARPs I've done. We can talk about this for hours, but let's move on to the next. Yeah, let's skip this one. So the reason for the maxim of LARP is that when I studied Egyptology, one of the texts that we read is called the Maxims of Ptahhotep, and Maxims are texts that addresses various virtues that somebody should learn. So often it's from an older statesman to a younger one, or from a wise priest to a king. And in this case, it is this text from Tahotep to Djedkare, one of the Old Kingdom pharaohs, around 2300 BC. And it's like very short, direct things about how to navigate the world, basically. And during the pandemic, I was stuck at home, not being able to play any LARPs or make them. And I decided to start writing down all of this in a form that sort of follows this Maxims. So short statements about how to do LARP design. And it's important to remember, this often happens with text like this, is that then suddenly it becomes like taught as the only truth. And this is my truth and not necessarily anybody else's. It's in the context of Nordic LARP, and it's in the context of the people who sign up for my games and the way I see that LARP design should be. There's many other ways of doing it that are equally good, but this is sort of my take on what is important to remember. So I think when I've looked at like manifestos that has been written in LARP before, a lot of them provoked me, and I think that is sort of the point, is to say I don't agree with that, but then it's a good idea to say why don't I agree with that, and try to actually write it down. I think in the next slide, if we move to that one, I have something about that. It's a good idea to actually sit down and write down why you don't agree with the various ones, because there's a lot of things to learn when there's this sort of there's some sort of animosity toward a statement. Then there's something to learn there, I think. Let's move on to, if we're gonna skip the next slide maybe, but let's see if I remember. That's a lot. Yeah, let's just move on. I explained that. See what the next one will be. Yeah, this is some of the examples from the hieroglyphs. And let's move on to next.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's a quite cool text. Yeah, I think I made the disclaimer I already spoke about. It's also a way for me to sort of figure out my blind spots. And let's move on from this one as well. Because if there's stuff I can't describe, then there's more work to be done, and that's sort of the great part of it for me, is to realize when there's elements that I don't understand or don't have an idea about. So it's not as much as like me telling like this is the truth. It's way more of a way of organizing what is important with LARP design, for me at least. And I think I learn a lot from it, and as many people have said, they learn a lot from it as well. So let's see if we can move to the next slide. Yes, so this is sort of the overarching idea about the Maxims. There are some concepts, or the core. I think I changed the name to core now, because everything is, of course, concepts, I realized. But there's like four core elements to it, and then there's sort of some foundational aspects, like what is design, what is playability, what is actions, and then it goes into a lot of detail, like around writing, or what is a character, or how do you make a good website, what is bleed, and there's a lot of that stuff I haven't defined yet, but I will sort of get to. The most important is the sort of the core concepts and the foundations, and the idea is at some point when I feel that is done, then it will be framed around with a few essays, and then hopefully I'll just publish it as a free PDF or a physical book if I think it's good enough. We'll see. Let's move on. Yes, let's move on from this one as well. And in here, I think it's good if you just shout.
I feel like I should provide some pause music or something while we wait for the slide.
We can do some miming.
Yeah.
See if we can get the next one.
I've been muted.
No,
But yes,
you're not
it
muted.
does take a second.
Yep.
Oh, it does come back to this slide. I see. I think it comes back.
Yeah, I think
to
it's
this.
twice. Yeah, just to go back to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a nice quote.
Okay.
We can read it and move on.
Do you remember there were a lot of slides for tangents?
Yeah, I make a lot of slides. I'm a
Associative thinker. Yeah.
Yes. I think there's close to 100 slides in there, which of course is ridiculous.
How long of a slot did you have to speak when you made
I had
this?
an hour and 45, and I spoke very fast, very fast. So we'll see how far we get.
I can appreciate multiple slides. I myself am someone who likes documents very much.
Yeah. So these are some of the first one, like idea, which for me is one of the most important things, is you need to really understand what's the idea of the thing. And it's sort of like, what's the overarching, without going into necessarily many details, but like the idea is the core of what it is you want to explore. And I think all labs explore something. It's not always clear to the designer in the beginning. Maybe you just want, like, when we realized that we had a real Soviet submarine that we could do anything in, I don't think we had any idea what the idea was, that we wanted to make like the coolest lab ever in a submarine. And then that evolved over time. And I think often when you're done with a lab, then retrospectively, you'll figure out what the idea actually was, or what it turned into when the players have been there. Because of course, a lab is not only the text, it actually only exists when it's being played. And then afterwards, it sort of also exists, but then it's sort of a collective memory. And I feel that a lot of times, sort of what's this quote unquote story of the lab is something that we decide collaboratively after the lab, even though that we all know that's not true, because everybody had their own experience and maybe experienced vastly different things. But some processes going on afterwards where we agree on what was the
I have John specifically tell you that cilantro is not a fruit. It is a herb.
Oh. I see. Well, thank you.
Although I do see that as I joined, you changed your status. Cilantro is not a fruit.
Okay, yes.
Did I just interrupt something? I apologize if I did.
Yeah. Strong ideas are multi-layered and want to tell the participants something about themselves and the world. It will also teach you about yourself. And I think we learn a lot from designing games in general, and especially when they're being played, there's a lot of stuff is being revealed. Like what interests do you have, and what interest does the player meet those interests is quite interesting as a designer to look at. Multi-layered means that the idea is explored from multiple angles and multiple viewpoints in multiple ways. This is like a sentence I come back to over and over again. Like when I feel that the design is done, then I always say, okay, what other angles of approach could you go into this lab with? What are the players? What do they want out of it? What do they want to explore? Is that covered? And is that interesting to cover? And if you feel that it's not interesting, then you need to make a conscious choice about that. And then defend your design or defend your choice when the labbers come. And there's often pushback on the design because people, they get an idea from what you have communicated and want your lab to be something else that it's not. And then it's important to have thought about it in many different ways. So you make sure that the lab being played is the one that you actually want being played, and not having the participants force you into making a lab that you don't want to make. And that can be like a difficult negotiation often. Be respectful of your idea and give it as much time as it needs to be ready. I think many labs have been played too early, where it's a half-baked, really good idea that could have been a brilliant lab if only the designers have used more time on realizing what's the potential and how could this be interesting. So be ready to like wait on an idea until you are ready or the LARP is ready to be played. And that's sort of the next maxim, which is a seemingly mediocre idea can be turned into a great one with time, contemplation, and hard work. And remember to consider if the idea is worth the effort. Ideas are generally cheap, and execution is hard. I know that, at least for me, I get a lot of ideas continuously, and when they sort of stick in my mind, I have to write them down to sort of that my mind can let go of them. But that doesn't not necessarily mean that I need to do them or make the LARPs. But it's a good exercise to think through how a LARP could be with a specific idea. But since many of these take so much time and effort to do, then there's all these LARPs that we could do, but do they actually need to be made? And maybe a better idea will present itself in a few days or a few weeks. And working on a LARP that is never executed is never a waste of time. You'll always learn something from the process. Let's move on to the next one.
That's a very comforting thought,
One
I
moment.
think. Since I have a lot of things that got stuck in pre-production and just
and at some point we just need to let them go. They will manifest. Yeah. And also share ideas, because maybe somebody picks up your idea and then they run with it, and then you get to play the LARP instead of organizing the LARP. And that is also fun. You should be able to explain your idea easily. If you cannot, then the idea is not ready to present it to the world. So test out, like, what's the elevator pitch? How do you explain what this LARP is? And that needs to be quite clear in your mind to be able to know that the idea is actually mature enough to be made into something. A clear idea will reveal the answers to all questions you will encounter during the design and production. And I think that's why it's very important to write down sort of what is the idea or the why of the LARP. So whenever there's a question, then you can go back and say, okay, I want the players to experience X. With this decision, what is the best answer? What answer will be the best possible way to stay truthful to your idea, and that will reveal what you should do. And that can be anything from scenography to what players should play it, or like what safety mechanics or rules are put into place with the idea, and then trust and believe that your idea is the important part. And of course, you need to be very clear in your communication if there's stuff that is not necessarily part of your community's way of playing, so people can make informed choices on if they want to play it or not. I think one of the most important skills to have when it comes to communication is a way to communicating so people can self-select not to participate instead of participating in a LARP that is not really for them. A good example is the House of Craving LARP, which is a quite queer LARP, and the first thing that is the website is designed in a way so it will scare off people who are not interested in queer erotic experiences. The first thing you see on the website is two men almost kissing, and then there's a text about these two stepbrothers, teenage stepbrothers that are making out, and they want to stop, but they can't. And the underlying story is, of course, that the house is forcing them to do it. And if you're not comfortable with playing scenes like that, then you should not sign up for the LARP. And that is sort of front and center in the way that the information is placed. So if you don't want to play those kind of stories, then you hopefully will not sign up for it. But that is a responsibility on us as the designers to communicate that very clearly. Your idea is not as original as you think. Promoting your ideas as original or like this is the first time X LARP is happening then you're not promoting your idea, you're promoting your own ego. Very few things is it important to say it's the first time that it happens. It's way better to have that it's the best way that it has happened so far than it is the first. And saying that it is the first, or it's not interesting to anybody. I think it's only there to create hype around the LARP in a way, or promote your ego, as I write. So just think about why you're communicating stuff there. And some of the control questions I always ask: why this idea, not another one? Have it been done before? If it has been done before, then talk to the people who did that. They will have great words of advice and will show you some of the pitfalls that you probably will step into if you don't talk to them. And most designers are very excited about talking about the LARPs they've done and the mistakes they've done as well. So it's always a good idea to ask. And then again, are you skilled enough to execute the idea now, or would it be better to wait? I have done LARPs way too early. That should have waited until I was better, or I had a better team around me. Just be aware of that when you come up with something like super elaborate. It's like, can you actually pull it off? Yeah, let's move on to the next one.
I like to think
Thank you.
we evaluated this, like our current project. We went through this as an evaluation of, is this idea worth doing? Are we ready to do it?
This was quality control.
Yeah, it helped a lot with.
Cool.
Well, I don't want to interrupt, but it helped.
That's very good. That is also how I use it, because you can get very excited about an idea and just like stopping up and thinking about, are we actually ready for this, or should we explore it more, or whatever, is super valuable, I think, for everybody. Even if it comes to that, you say, yeah, you're ready, because then you've had that time to just not just be in love with the idea. Let's move on to the next one. This is sort of a summary slide.
Oh. Are you working hard, Celine? Is it difficult?
My cat is doing her best to make it impossible for me to switch these slides.
Theme. The theme is what your participants will explore while engaging with your LARP. It is not the story or the idea. The theme is the main thing that defines what actions should be available to the participants. And of course, LARPs can have many different themes. There's some examples there from films like Resistance and Overcoming Tyranny, what it is to be human, love and sacrifice. And there are, of course, other themes at play in these films or in LARPs. But it's very good to sort of identify what are we actually focusing on in this world, or this story world. What are the important things that people will be engaging with? Because that will also define like what are the things that you should be able to do. For example, with the House of Craving, since there's like a house that manifests as ghosts that needs to like dive in and control the people around them, then we need to come up with good, seamless LARP mechanics that will work in a way where it doesn't like stop play, but also there's ways of opting out of very intense scenes. Maybe you're sitting alone in a room, and 7 of the 12 house ghosts come into your room, and they want you to do actions that you hadn't realized that suddenly your character would be doing. Then there needs to be a way of navigating that very like peer pressure situation that you're in, both so you feel safe, but also that the story that is being told is interesting. So looking at what the themes are is a good way of figuring out what physical actions will you actually be doing. And I'm going to talk more about actions, I think, on the next couple of slides. There's probably one more about theme. So let's move on to the next one. Yes, I think. Yes. Be ready to explain your themes in detail, both what they are and what they are not. This will help the participants in knowing how you want them to explore the themes. Without the guiding light of themes, the participants are lost and the lab will be worse for it. And the theme can never be the idea, it's a tool to make the idea happen. And again, like if we take the submarine example, we didn't know what the themes would be for that lab. We wanted them to be able to, like, what it is to live in a submarine in 1963 during the Cuban Missile Crisis. But what does that actually entail? And like one of the actions that need to be available there is like sail the submarine. Okay, then we need to figure out how do we do that? Can we make technology so the submarine can actually move in a virtual space, and then the hydrophone and radar and so on works, so you know where you are in the world? Or will this be something that you will talk to us, the organizers, off game, out of play, and we will tell them what's going on? What do you actually do? You want them to actually be able to sail a submarine, which we wanted to, which was a terrible idea. Since, of course, getting to learn how to navigate a ship below water in the dark is you know, it takes years to learn, not like a workshop over a weekend.
Okay.
So we should probably have thought of that, but we didn't, because we were, I think, too much in love with the idea, and maybe should have made it simpler. Let's move on to the next one. Oh yeah, the final one here is like, if you don't design what the themes are, then the participants will be defaulting to whatever they know, what their culture normally do, and that will never be good for the lab, because then people will be playing in all kinds of directions. So you need to know what's the let's stop on this one. That's when you need to know what the themes are to be able to play the same LARP. I participated in a lab which was it was sort of marketed as a dark realist early medieval Europe kind of thing, where peasants were forced to go into war. And when we marched into like the forest with our spears, and people were singing songs, and then we came to this fortress, and when the night and the fortress, there was like real horse entrails rotting on the ground and blood everywhere, and it seemed terrible, right? And it was terrible because it smelled quite bad in the summertime. And then when the night came, the monsters came out of the forest. But the organizers wanted this sort of bait and switch where you thought it was like a realistic medieval experience, and then suddenly it turned into a horror story. And
like
then
from dusk to dawn genre shift kind of.
Yeah, so kind of like masked monsters that came out and ripped you apart kind of thing.
How did that work?
It didn't work at all, because of course if you play a realist LARP, then peasants with a spear, they will hide wherever they can hide, and like completely still for hours and try not to die. And if you play a horror story, you say, let's go to the basement and let's split up also. The actions are very different, right? So you need to know what are you playing the same game, and that's for all games, because if you're playing 2 different games or 17 different games in the same space, it's going to be not great for anybody, right? Vision is, I think, where I put a lot of the early design work, sort of figuring out what it is that I actually want this to be. So the vision is what you see in your mind when you think of the LARP, all aspects of it, from idea and themes to production and execution. Is this like a heavy production thing, high resolution everything, or is it something more simple? And also, like, what are the characters like? What's the content within the characters, and so on and so forth. Like the whole package of the thing is the vision. If you see how people think of you, you do not see your vision, but your own ego. And I think this is where a lot of designers go wrong. And I've also done this, where I think more about what's the cool thing to do here. What will people think is badass? and that would just turn you into an edgelord instead of making the best LARP you can do. There's been great
none of us are
edgelordy
cool.
LARPs.
Just let that go. We're
Yeah,
not
just
cool.
let it go. No, just let it go. It's not important to make a great LARP. You'll get more cool points for making a great LARP than an edgelordy one.
Yeah.
It's your responsibility to clearly explain your vision to your team and potential participants, not for them to guess what it is. And I think this is one of the main tasks of the design team, is to be very clear on what the vision is of this thing, because otherwise decisions will be fussy, and you'll end up with participants who shouldn't be signing up for the thing, or they're playing it in a way that doesn't work with everybody else, and so on. And yeah, the second to last is like you need to be able to explain what it is, and even more what it is not. And this especially comes to if you design LARPs that is within a known IP, for example. As I said, I started out making like Vampire the Masquerade LARPs, one of the big tabletop role-playing games. And people have been playing this for 30 years now. So there's a lot of opinions on how it should be played. And if you want to do something different, you need to be very clear that it is not whatever they think it is, and you don't know what they think. But so you need to be very clear. And be very clear in communicating that it is different. Because I've seen so many times when people sign up to a vampire LARP that they say, oh, I know vampire, I've been playing for 25 years, so I don't have to read any of the material, which of course is not great for anybody, because then you come in with your own culture and not play the LARP that is presented to you.
I can see Neon taking notes. Yes.
Oh no, I agree with everything.
Yeah.
And I really would love to do. I've done a few LARPs for White Wolf, the publisher of Vampire the Masquerade, and that's been great fun. But it's also a challenge that people come with their own culture and are not willing to try something new. And even if you write it that this is different from what you're used to, people just ignore it because they want to be in the next quote unquote cool LARP, and
Yeah.
it doesn't really
stick with what they know.
Yeah, it doesn't go well most of the time. Prepare yourself to compromise and change your vision when the LARP meets reality. And of course, like we have dreams in our mind how it should be, and then often time or budgets will make other choices for you. And I think I have one when we go further down the list, if we don't get to it, is that those kind of things are often, I think, a blessing, because those restrictions will make you think creatively and maybe come up with something that is not as flashy but still efficient design. There's a lot of decisions that are made for you. Like if the lab runs, let's say, a Friday, Saturday, that's a restriction. How much money do you have? That's a restriction, and so on and so forth. And you just have to work with those things and see it as it's good that you don't have to make all the decisions. And of course, it's fun to have unlimited budget, but I haven't tried it yet, so we'll see when that happens.
I do want to say that what you're saying here, the last point on vision about compromising and being willing to change and adjust, I think is the number one lesson that our community needs to learn over and over again.
Yeah.
So that was one of those that landed really hard with us.
Oh.
Yeah.
Please do.
I would say it's how to fix that would be even deeper about just communicating. As Bjarke was saying about the idea of communicating what your LARP or role play is intended to be, the theme and the vision of it, expressing that to the participants and players, because that right off the bat, I feel like would help navigate potential conflicts down the line. It's just having that moment of transparency and communication.
Yeah.
The term we use for this is setting expectations.
Yeah. I have a slide in one of my... sorry, continue.
Oh, and I was going to say, a lot of our preparation is how to communicate expectations. But no matter how, this is my feedback, no matter how convincing and how thorough your feedback and communication and expectation set are, the LARP will roleplay will change with the participation, with the people who are coming in, and it's important not to fight. It's important to be willing to adjust. That's how I feel.
I agree. I have a slide in one of my design talks, which is disappointment is a direct function of expectation. And that's your responsibility as a designer.
There you go.
So
it's a bit bleak.
but
not untrue, but
there's a lot of LARPs, and I've done it myself, that you communicated through hype. And that will make a lot of people disappointed because then they believe the hype, the lies you're telling. And then when they don't get that, they will be disappointed. But if you tell them, like, for example, with the Legion LARP in the Czech Republic, I said, you will be cold and you need to be able to walk in the snow and carry all your things, and we will not carry them for you. Then you can decide if you want that experience or not. But at least you're not going to be surprised when you step into it that will happen.
You also get all the people who like that stuff, who
Exactly.
want to do have that experience, and they're more engaged with it, and it enhances the LARP.
And it can be in the smallest things, like this LARP has pre-written characters. There's no negotiation of the content of the character. It's a take it or leave it situation. And that, of course, can be said in a nicer way, but I think that communication is very important to say, like, this is what you can expect, right? Let's move on to the next one. Story. And a LARP doesn't have one main story. If you're designing for one, your LARP will be worse for it. I've been to many LARPs where at the end of the LARP, the organizers want to tell you what's the story of the LARP. But since they've not been playing the LARP, they don't understand what stories have been told. And that can be like a main narrative arc. That's perfectly fine. Like Hamlet has a main narrative arc that follows the play. And it ends with a duel and drinking of poison and those things. Those are sort of predetermined. That's the fate of the royal house of Claudius. But the way to get there is not controlled. And in LARP cannot be controlled. What are the other characters that your character will be talking to and so on. If you want to tell one story, then write a novel or a screenplay. LARP is not that medium. It has as many individual main characters as there are players, and all of them are equally important. And you don't, like with Hamlet, of course, focusing on Hamlet seems like an important thing, but it's really not. You need to focus on all the characters to be of equal quality. And they will not have the same opportunities, of course, within the story framework. And the next one where you can influence the sort of the narrative story arc a character has, but you can't control it. If the player wants to do something else, then it's very difficult for you to control that. Or in my book, I don't think you can control it because you don't know what are the emotions and experience that goes on inside the mind of the player. And you can't see it from the outside. It's very different from culture to culture. I've done LARPs in like 10 plus countries, and some cultures have very expressive, like you can see all emotions in people's faces, and then there's other ones where you see nothing. For example, the Finns have no facial expressions whatsoever. You need to look elsewhere for what emotions are going on, and it's a lot of fun. Again, also it's a culture, like the Finnish culture is. The most rude thing you can do is take strangers' time. So if you ask for directions on the street with somebody you don't know, you make sure to make the sentence as short as possible. And that combined with a language that doesn't have a word for please, some very difficult situations can arise. So for example, I told this to my brother's husband, who's a purser at Scandinavian Airlines, and suddenly he realized that when Finns, for example, ordered a gin and tonic and didn't say, "Could I please have a gin and tonic, if you don't mind?" Then and they just looked at you with a deadpan face and said, "Gin and tonic." That they were not being rude, but they were trying to be polite. So you need to know, of course, your participants' culture. And this side note, I think it's important that you don't understand. You really can't know what is going on and what is intense for different people, and what is rewarding play. If you change the stories told by your players or participants because their actions don't fit your vision, you have misunderstood the medium of LARP. Again, write a book. Like if somebody plays out a story and then you want to narrate on top of that what they feel, that's the wrong medium. That's the responsibility of the participant, not the responsibility of you as a designer. And this, of course, as soon as I presented this, then somebody made a black box LARP, which was exactly about that, which also is part of the sort of the Nordic LARP tradition. Is as soon as somebody sets a rule, then somebody will try to design a LARP that breaks that rule and challenge it. And I love that, because this is not about me being right, but it's about like where do I feel we are at this point in time.
It's almost a form of peer review, like you would see in the scientific community.
Yeah. So there's been many LARPs made in spite in this way.
Lovingly in spite.
I always think back to obviously I've never played one of their games, but I've read the Jeep Forum website, and like one of their examples explicitly has like the GM narrating over like what the players are thinking and feeling as like an explicit meta technique, and I'm just like, oh, whenever I think to that, it's scary.
That's something we have to justify from our design point of view, saying like, you shouldn't do this. Well, we have to say why shouldn't you tell people how they're feeling? You know, for us, when we're as a designer, you can be invisible next to someone. You can literally be a voice in their ear telling them how they should feel on a specific thing. And so we have to justify why is that bad, you know, so that's kind of where we're at, you know, in terms of arguing with each other about design, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I have also made LARP where I have been like more hands-on with enforcing emotion on people or telling them stuff in their ear, and that's a valid design decision to do. I think the point is that we need to be able to explain why it's important in this LARP and make sure that it doesn't turn into tradition where it's something that is always used. And I've seen so many times where interesting design mechanics suddenly becomes like the norm, even though it sort of loses the way it is meant to be used, or does it actually work in this specific LARP and not, it's not like a general consensus thing that has to be in place every time. So I this can firmly be broken, and I've done it myself, and I think it's good as long as we can explain why we're doing this thing instead of something else. Let's move on to the next one. And these are sort of the foundations. We can probably go through quite a few of them.
My favorite, designable surfaces. It's my favorite phrase.
I like that as well. It's a way of thinking, I think, because suddenly when you realize that everything can be designed, then suddenly the whole world opens up to you. Design is the deliberate act of shaping how a LARP function, flows, and is experienced. It determines the boundaries of play, the interactions that emerge, and the framework within which participants create meaning. And this is quite a mouthful, but it is sort of what are the active elements that the participants will have to engage with at like all points through, before, during, and after the LARP. and this will set the tone for basically everything the lab does. And I think you can only start designing the lab when you have the other aspects, the theme and the idea and the vision, not necessarily 100% locked down, but you need to know what's the scope, the scope and the scale and the vision of the thing, and then you can start making decision on the design of the lab. Let's move on to the next one. Yes, so the statement is there at the top. When done well, it affects, and let's see, something that needs to be corrected at some point in my slide deck. I can see. Yeah, well done design is seamless, pleasurable, and heighten the experience without the participants realizing why. When done poorly, design becomes an obstacle, disrupts ideas, themes. There's confusion, frustrates participants. The result is unnecessary extra work for the participants and organizing team before, during, and after runtime. The more clunky the design is, the more questions you will have before, during, and the more decisions the players need to come up with themselves, and they will not come up with the same. Like, it could be too many game mechanics, so the players can't remember all of them. So the players choose deliberately or unconsciously what 3 that they think are most important. But if everybody choose 3 different ones, then it's going to be messy, right? And pleasurable and seamless. That's the thing about good design, is that when you don't realize that it's there, that is sort of the best possible spot for it. An example from Inside Hamlet is that in one of the rooms, which was Queen Gertrude's boudoir, so there was like a giant bed and soft furniture and dimmed lighting, and we wanted people to have physical play and be close. And one of the ways of doing that is to make sure that all of the furniture is comfortable and there's not enough seats. Because if there's not enough seats and it's sort of dim, so nobody feels exposed, then they will sit on top of each other. And then you get the physical play that you want. We had 2 runs where when we came back after a year and had to do 2 runs back to back, and the heater in the room where the boudoir was played, they were like movable heaters, and there was one missing from the boudoir. So the temperature in the room were, what is that, like 5 centigrade colder, 4 or 5 degrees colder. So that's like 7, 8, 9 Fahrenheit colder, which meant that it was a bit too cold for people to wear like boudoir clothes, so they put on more clothes, which meant that the interactions, when people wanted that kind of interaction more physical, they moved to a different space where it was warmer. So we scrounged up some electrical heaters and put in there, and then suddenly the design worked again in that space. But the difference in 4 degrees in a room can ruin whatever interactions you want in a space, and that is also design, right? So realizing, of course, you can't control everything, and that's the thing about designable surfaces, is they can't control all of it, but at least know which ones are the most important ones to lock down. And I think we've all been, a good example, I can go when we get to the designable surfaces, a few examples more about that. Let's move on to the next. The opposite of design is tradition. And what we mean by that is that all the things you do in your design where you don't think about, but we've always had this kind of interaction mechanic, then you're not designing, then you're just following tradition. And you are not making a conscious choice about how it should be done or how it could be done, or is there a different way of doing it that's better for this LARP? And then if you're just following tradition, you're not designing at all. And I've been to quite many LARPs, and in the beginning, I made quite a few LARPs also, where I just did it the way that I was taught. without thinking about what are the consequences of putting these pieces of the design together. And like obviously you need to have X in a LARP. Maybe you don't. Maybe this LARP would be better with something else. So this is sort of one of the guiding stars every time I do a LARP is to remember that if I'm just doing the same safety mechanics or the same interaction mechanics or escalation mechanics or whatever it is, then it has very little to do with the design. Often I choose the same things for those things because I know they work, and I know that the people coming to play my LARPs, they have already trained those mechanics, so they will know how to use them. So it's quicker to do, but I also know that often it's not necessarily the best way of doing it. But that, of course, is also a compromise that we need to do sometimes. Let's move on to the next one.
Is everybody on board with what we mean with safety mechanics? And yeah, otherwise just holler.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
All design elements should be pointing in the same direction and explore the ideas and themes of the LARP. Don't assume previously used design elements will work in your next LARP. This is what I said. So bespoke design is when all design elements specifically address the core idea and themes of the LARP. So because that means that the actions the players will be doing will be connected to the themes and the vision, and they will be speaking in the same direction, and you will get participants who are engaged with the themes of the LARP, but not doing something completely random that is not important. I went to a LARP many years ago where it was like we were doing some science work, and the way we did science was to solve Sudoku puzzles. And like after 2 or 3 of those, that felt like it had no connection to anything. And so you stopped doing it because there was like no way of connecting that to the themes of the LARP. It was just a mini game within the LARP that had no connection, and that becomes uninteresting very quickly because most people realize that it has very little to do with the thing. It's just a thing to slow down. It's a way of making specific elements of the LARP slower. Like for me, the biggest crime you can do when you design games is to make parts of the design, the only function is to make the players play the game for a longer time and not engage with any of the themes of the story. Yeah, you need to understand that less is more. Because people can't remember basically most people can't remember when they're stressed more than 2, maybe 3 things. So having more design elements that people want to focus on, if it's new, all of it is new, then they won't remember.
That'll also be what they take away after the end of the LARP.
Yeah.
Is that frustration that they were feeling when they were doing the thing that frustrated them, not the fun that they were having, or whatever scenes they had or emotions they felt.
Absolutely. Yeah, basically, when we go through an experience, remember the beginning, the end, and maybe 2 high points and maybe 2 low points. Anything else is not necessarily remembered after a short while. Yeah, let's move on to the next one. This is just a summary. Yes. This is, I've been fighting over this definition for like a long time. There's a lot of people who don't agree with this at all. For me, this is sort of the key element. When we talk about, is this LARP playable? That it is sort of one of the only, I think it's on the next slide maybe. Let's move to the next slide. I think this is the one where we have this one at the top. So playability exists when participants have access to meaningful actions that resonate with both their characters and themselves, with each action directly tied to the LARP's themes. LARPs can be aesthetic, transformative, fun, and many other things, but if it has low playability, it's by definition a poorly designed LARP. I think we've talked a lot many designers, we talk a lot about what makes a good LARP. Because I've been to terrible LARPs, poorly designed, and had the best experience, and that was because the people I was playing with was really good, and we had a strong connection. That was sort of not it wasn't very playable, so we sort of played our own thing. But when you look at the LARP objectively, then playability is sort of one of the only like measures of success that you can look at. Like, did it look beautiful? Yes, that's great. But like for LARP specifically, I think playability is sort of the key one to focus at. So, and if it has low playability, it's not a very good designed LARP. Some people can have a great experience, but again, it's not something that is within your control.
But that can also vary greatly within the same LARP. Some characters have a lot of playability, and others simply don't.
Yeah, and I think this is sort of, it's not really a diagnostic tool, but like more like a lens you need to look at all the stuff you've done, is to say like where's the lowest playability. Like for example, at my submarine lab, the people who were like managing the electrical engine and had basically needed to push a button every 45 minutes, low playability, right? There's so few things to engage with. And then also that room was cold because it was just impossible to heat up. So it was cold and boring. So that's a low playability and a terrible experience.
Understanding this definition has been a little difficult when we've talked about it before. And the way I always interpret it and express it to others is that it means like what we might call like character agency or player agency. Yeah. Like how much agency you have. Is that like a good characterization?
Agency, I think, is one element. I think you can also have you can design a lab where you have very low agency, but it can still be well designed and have a high playability. I think a good example is from this is like early 2000s, a lab called 1942 in Norway, where they redressed like a small village to look like 1942, and you had people playing the German occupation force, and then you had, I think, like 60 people playing the village, and they went out in fishing boats and fished their food, and there was of course resistance fighters and so on. And then there was also 4 players playing the Jewish refugees, who was in a small room behind a boarded door in an attic. And they had very little agency in the LARP, but of course there was the people who signed up for those parts specifically, because they were briefed so well about what the experience would be, had an amazing LARP because that was what they wanted, but their agency was very low. But I think in most general terms, agency is a very good measurement about how playable the LARP is. And there's other aspects as well, but I think agency is a good shorthand for playability.
Would you say you could describe it as agency within scope of the character in the setting? The LARP design itself can constrain agency, and that could be a negative thing. But if the character that they're playing has inherently little agency due to circumstances in the quote unquote universe that they're in or the setting they're in, that could actually, that is a situation where low agency is expected.
You need to be very clear in the way you communicate and make sure you get the right people who are interested in that.
I feel like a potential comparison, just from what we're talking about too, would be, and I could be totally wrong, but the idea that in role play within VR chat, there's like different layers of participants, so to speak. I have lots of experience being what we call like an NPC, a non-player character, someone who's meant to just go after the characters and get shot and fall down and die. So there's different agencies in that regard too. Most participants anticipate that when you're an NPC, you're not somebody that's going to have that player agency, so to speak. You're going to be directed and coordinated by the DM.
And you know that's the experience that you are gonna get, and that's gonna be quite different. But it's something that you actually need to know. I just need to put some power on the headset. Give me a second.
Not necessarily an interesting thing that we get on, I guess, stuck on agency. My perspective on agency as I'm very inspired by sort of interactive theater and the sort of like conventions there. And there's this idea in interactive theater, which to translate that into LARP, I've called it like facilitating role play, sort of like the facilitator character. But there's this concept basically where you essentially intentionally lower your own character's agency. Like you basically put you put your character beneath other characters intentionally, because it explicitly gives you more agency as a player, because that it actually makes it easier for other players to play with you. This is like a sort of concept from the interactive theater space. So I do kind of wonder. That's I guess not so much in like a LARP design standpoint. That's like as a facilitator. If I were maybe like an in-character GM, that's something I would be thinking about. Is like, well, how do I intentionally lower my character's agency to get the players to play along with me? And then that kind of I don't know. I don't want to tangent this too much, but it's just a thought that popped in my head.
Yeah. And I think, definitions of, or like what's a usable way of agency varies across mediums. I think it's an important thing to remember. I might run out of power on the headset, but it's been plugged in all the time, but let's see.
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah, a few. Fortunately.
Agency is like the big hot button issue, or one of them right now. The big discussion amongst the community at the moment.
And on playability, I think the important thing one of the important things of the design is the first top here, with the first one at the top. Where playability should be mainly provided by the design, but it is often provided by the skill of the participants. And I think we see it again and again, that the skill set of participants who are in a poorly designed lab can make the lab great. But that's a responsibility that should be on the designer.
I think if there seems to be, if agency is something that is creates a huge discussion when talking about VR LARP design, maybe exchanging that word for playability every now and then, maybe that can unlock something.
That might be.
Yeah, just look at it from a slightly different angle for a bit.
This is the summary slide on playability. Let's move to the next one. A lot of my design time, when sort of the vision and the idea and so on is locked down, is to look at what actions are available to your participants. Like what actions are available? What are they actually going to do? What are the verbs available to them? Because that will also realize where are the weak points in the characters, and are the verbs available are there equal amount of verbs available, and equal good quality verbs, I would say. Like if you play like a Regency lab, then there will be like dancing and talking, maybe flirting, and so on. So like, what will you actually be doing during the thing? And if you can't describe those actions in detail, then it's not really designed in my book. It might still work. I've gone to labs, and I've also done lab, like, you put a bunch of vampires together in a room and stuff might happen. But it's a very, like, the consistency of outcome is very low. And I think it's important when you look at design is sort of that the consistency needs to be high. And the way of identifying that is to figure out what are the verbs available to the various characters in the game, in the lab. And if you don't put verbs in that are connected to the themes and the vision, then people will just start making up whatever verbs they want. And then it will not be, again, people will be playing different LARPs and it will be inconsistent and not very rewarding in general. So the verbs is a very good focus whenever you are in doubt with something, is to go back and look, okay, what is actually available? What actions can they actually be doing? Like, for example, solving Sudoku. It doesn't really fit into the whatever vision in most LARPs, I would say. So maybe you should try to come up with something that is more interesting. Or remove that simulation part of playing a scientist and focus on something else that is more rewarding, like inter-character play or whatever you think is important. Let's move to the next one. What actions are available to the characters? So these are questions, control questions you can always ask, like, are the action varied and numerous enough to be interesting for the participants in the time frame of the LARP? I've done many LARPs where there was too few, so the LARP felt like it was too long, and it was too long because of this, right? Have you informed the participants what the main actions available to them actually are? For example, with the people playing the Jews in an attic, there's very few verbs like available. Fearing is one, and waiting is one, and so on. So you need to make sure that everybody is on board with what verbs or what actions that are available to them. Will the actions help create a meaningful experience for the participants? It's a waste of your valuable time to design and use a lot of time on designing actions that will not be meaningful for the participants. So figure that out early. Let's move on to the next one. Designable surfaces. I think that, yeah, this is sort of the mindset of the way I design LARP is to look at the designable surface, and all aspects of the LARP are designable surface. That is a designable surface that will affect the participant's experience, and all should be taken equally seriously. And then there's the long list, like characters, music, and temperature, setting, light, time frame, location, meta techniques, website, price, casting, scenography, basically anything. What is the color of the walls? Are those available for you to change? And of course, when you do VR lapping, they are. Temperature, all of it is important, and all of it would have consequences of the types of actions that the players have available to them, and also even if they are available, they might not feel like doing them because of, the example was temperature before. Some of the surfaces are locked due to constraints, time, money, location limitations. Again, at Castle Elsinore, we couldn't paint the walls, so they were what they were, and the space there had been used as a museum up until the year before, so it was like white, sort of grayish walls and wooden floors, and there was nothing there at all. So we had to bring everything in there. Examine what the consequences are of those limitations and adjust the design. And since everything can be designed, know which ones you cannot, you don't have time for, or you will. There's other ones more important. And knowing that you need to choose which ones that you will actually be designing. And as you know, with VR LARPing, then there's a lot of things that are way easier to, like the physical space is easier to manipulate than in the real world, where you have to build physical scenography. So, and I'm not saying that it's necessarily easy to do, but at least it's easier to make a spaceship in here than building a spaceship out in the real world. Let's move to the next one. And these are the summaries. The fewer surfaces you design, the more unpredictable the quality of your lab will be. Yeah. Yeah, this is production. We can stay on this slide, and just to finish our talk on designable surface, I would love to hear a little bit more about like how this had impacted you when you felt that this is an important concept in your design work. Was it?
Try to rewind. It might not go well.
May, was it you who said that designable surfaces was kind of its home?
There you go.
So, repeat the question for me. Sorry.
It's just like you said that it had been the impact of this specific concept had been big on the way you design LARPs. If you could talk a little bit more about that.
We have learned over time to take a holistic look with that particular phrase, everything can be a designable surface. We had a lot of historic relics from early on in our community. And I say early on here, I'm talking 6 years, where there was a particular style of creating a character. You had like 6 things specified about your character and a background story that the GMs would not pay any attention to. And that was inherited by every RP that came afterwards. They all did the same thing. Edges and flaws, and those were the mechanics. Those were the verbs that the characters would have. That was something that was a designable surface that we didn't appreciate until that helpful phrase was pointed out. And from that point on, we started approaching not just the character sheet, that's the term for that, not just the character sheet, you're familiar with this, but also like what the starting area, because we will all log in about an hour or 30 minutes before the session starts. And almost every session uses just generic boring box that doesn't say anything about the roleplay or the experience the character's going to have. So that is a designable surface. You can design an area that will onboard and prepare the player for the experience they're going to have. Instead of being a box, let's say they're going to a small American town. Make it look like a bus stop or a bus terminal, right? Where they're getting ready to load into it. So that's how we've approached that. And we've gone comprehensively through every portion of the design before preparing for an RP. The themes, we design those. We design how the players will interact with that. So that's how we've approached it. That's why it made a big impact.
For me, it's also opening up the idea that how we relate to each other is a designable surface. And it's not just about the look of things, but the nature of things as well. And that frees up a lot of design thinking, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a good example of a designable surface we used at Hamlet was that when the players started to arrive at the Castle Elsnore, which is a very impressive place, was that when they went into the courtyard, the first thing they saw was me in the middle of the courtyard with a cup of coffee looking completely relaxed.
This is the one you were talking about, wasn't it? This example was Barack.
Yeah. And
I believe I've relayed the story, yes, but go ahead.
Yeah. So when the players came, I've come to many LARPs and I've run many LARPs myself also where maybe we are behind schedule and everybody's a little bit stressed out. So the first thing they meet is somebody who's stressed out. And that creates uncertainty and that will make people listen less when they are in workshops, or because then they will be worrying like, is this a canary in the coal mine? Well, like what other things are not in place, right? So when they meet me in the courtyard with a cup of coffee being completely relaxed, even though that might be stuff on fire, then they will relax and then they will be better listeners, and they will also, when they relax, they will be better players, right? Because then they can listen. Because when we are in a stressful state, it's hard to understand where you are. And of course, this is a scale that goes all the way up, not to listening to your own boundaries and so on. And that's of course not the case with whether I'm standing in the courtyard or not, but it will make a better LARP for it. And it is very important for the design team during that part of the runtime is that is my most important task, not making sure that the scenography is ready, for example. But to stand there and being relaxed is an important thing. That is also a designable surface, right?
Never again will I trust you when you're looking relaxed with a cup of coffee.
No, don't never trust me there. No. Like there's also like a thing I did at the Hamlet workshop was like just before we were starting, and this is again a designable surface, and maybe it's manipulation, but it's like I always ask the question. I say like, are you ready to begin the LARP? And then people that like the 100 people there, they are sort of nodding, and I say, are you nervous? Because I'm nervous. And then a lot of people say yes, they're nervous, and say, it's a way of acknowledging the nervousness that always before a LARP starts. And I'm not nervous in that situation at all. But it's a way of putting me in the position of some of the participants, so they feel seen, so they can relax again, right? So that is a lie I have told at all the Hamlet runs just before we start, is that I'm nervous, but I'm not nervous in that situation. Maybe at the first one I was nervous, but I wasn't at the rest of the runs we did. So again, the way we talk about LARP and what anchors we put in the language is quite important, as you know, in any situation, and that is also something you can design for. Yes. Production is an integral part of LARP design. You cannot design a LARP disconnected from the production aspects. And it's a struggle between vision and budget, a struggle where the budget always wins, or the organizer's personal finances. That has happened quite a few times where people decide not to compromise on their vision and then spend their own money on something, and the LARP will run at a deficit. Limitation of productions are a gift for decisions you have to make on design. Again, there's stuff you can't do because it's too expensive. A good production is paramount, since it is the only element of the LARP that cannot be saved by the participants before or during runtime. You just need a really good production team to make sure that you keep your promises. And if you can't keep your promises due to external factors, then you need to communicate it again. Again, this thing about expectations and disappointment.
Speaking of running
yes.
LARPs at a deficit, do we have any examples of VR LARPs with a fee? With a participant
I was just thinking
fee?
that. I was just wondering that.
There's a Patreon,
I am aware.
And there's donations
There's
sometimes.
Patreon. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever
Most
been
creators.
like a
I
fee to
think a
join
lot of
roleplay
times it's
in
not
VR.
necessarily financially
There's
driven with
one.
VR chat roleplay. It's more as it's since
I
we
have
all
an
could
example.
come together from multiple different time zones.
Yeah.
It's when it's the time we spend versus the financial expenditure.
Well, making maps still costs money.
So there is one example. It wasn't run in VR chat. It ran in Neo, and it was a theater group that came in, and you would pay to be a starship captain, and there was a dedicated crew of participants. Yep.
There are actually quite a few of those. So I suppose. There are actually quite a few kind of outside our community space. There is like there's the meta movie, which I think is probably what became of the thing that you are referencing. That's still ongoing. And there is I forget what the
well, the Ferryman Collective,
Hot
they're
Beef
in VR
was
chat.
Yeah, there's some interactive theater things, but there's whatever. There was like a noir like LARP game. I know Beef was actually a part of that, and I don't remember what it was
the
called.
Ghost Precinct. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
So there are projects out there. It's the specific this community space. We usually this is seen as a hobby, and we don't have. There's maybe donations. Maybe.
Yet.
So the budget is usually zero.
Aspects of the community stream it and focus on that aspect to try to get their finances to some detriment, depending on who you talk to.
I think there would be a lot of pushback culturally if someone started doing that in this community.
Mm-hmm.
We're not ready
historically
yet.
asked. Yeah, I have historically asked a number of years ago. I actually did a survey of like, would you be willing to pay sort of, it was $3 per month to participate in a LARP, and the answer was no. The answer was a resounding absolutely not, never. This was I think this was 2 years ago that I put out like a survey. So that's basically the yeah.
I feel like it's almost a cultural difference in the sense why that happens. I only think about this because the fact you're talking about LARPs, and I found out from the few here that have talked about it that a large number of LARPs actually happen over the pond, over in Europe, and all that stuff. It's not that much in America. There's few, far and in between, and they usually are at cost. They're usually a high cost, so they're not very popular over here. So I think if you ask an American audience, $3 a month, that's outrageous, I think. But I feel like it changes culturally as well.
One of the constraints to consider is the size of the United States.
Maybe.
It is very hard for us to collect people.
Yeah.
Into one area. Travel is very expensive here. And so we're kind of a diaspora across a continent that's as large as all of Europe, you know.
Exactly.
So that's why it's a bit rarer too for LARPs in particular. They do exist. There are quite a few, but they're difficult to find. Pandas?
What?
Oh, I thought you were saying something. Okay, never mind. Oh, yeah.
I myself am very happy to keep doing stuff for free, though I would love to move towards kind of like the open source, we share resources model. I think that would be helpful, rather than, you know, as opposed to payment. But we can that's get into that I guess another time. That's like my personal hope for the future is, rather than like an entry fee, it would be like a community. We collect resources because we can like infinitely copy things because it's all digital. So we don't need to like house people or feed them or do any of these other things.
I feel like, I wonder if some of it is influenced from the early roleplay scene being influenced so much by the Dungeons and Dragons GMing scene, where it's not it's not unheard of for GMs to charge for sessions to players, but it's usually pretty frowned upon or looked down upon. I wonder if that has any early cultural impact, considering who was big early on.
I'm sure that's part of it. Another thing is like with the VR roleplay community, there's so many different options. Like there are hundreds of different role plays that you can participate in, and it's like if one of them pops up and is like, oh yeah, even if it's a small fee, you know, every month, it's like, as like a designer, you're discouraged from doing that because you're inherently going to, unless you have a really good idea and you get like people on board, you're gonna inherently get a lot less you're gonna get a lot less participants if you present like, oh yeah, you have to pay to, because people already have to pay like hundreds of dollars for getting like a custom avatar made and all this kind of stuff just on their end to even be able to participate in the roleplay. And a lot of times that's what's seen as the entry fee is, oh, you have to pay somebody to get your avatar made because we as the roleplay designers aren't going to do that for you.
Or sometimes you spend hundreds of hours learning how to do it yourself after work or whenever you have time.
Yeah, like it's like I myself, for like a roleplay that I'm running, have made for free just like half of the avatars for the participants, but it's only like a dozen people. So I have the time to do that, but if it's like a 50 plus roleplay, like a 50 plus participant roleplay, it's just not feasible. So I feel like just kind of because of the medium, that's probably why I don't really see it ever gaining popularity, like having a base entry fee.
Yeah, like the space we're in right now itself, VR chat, is a free game application that has a significant amount of people who contribute either worlds or avatars for free. Ultimately, you can go to worlds and search for avatars that, like, the creator made this world to demonstrate some of the avatars they created. And in role plays too, depending on the team, can depend. Sometimes I know with Brim's world too, sometimes we use public maps, sometimes we don't. So there's this variability. So when you have a situation where you want to try to inquire or request financial funds from the participants, it's very much going to lightly meet with resistance. And I understand with LARP, there's a lot more actual, like you said, like food, housing, design of the environment. With here, people can take assets from other games or other maps and then kind of plug and play like a puzzle piece. So that, mind you, I have no idea about map creation. It's not how I'm trying to describe it at all. But the idea that there is more tools in the virtual world of role play than maybe doesn't need as much financial backing than maybe in actual LARPing experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
Due to it being digital media, you run into copyright issues. If you start making finances start getting involved. You could, if it becomes big enough or gains a certain enough vision of any companies or even the developers, it could invite scrutiny upon the community.
Again, it depends on what you think of as the designable surface, and what is the unique design of your game. Sorry, Bjarke, I got you derailed. Did you want to?
This is super interesting.
This is something I feel very strongly about. I will say because I do feel like personally, I do feel like a lot of this is a sort of top down sort of culture that has almost been imposed in the sort of online video game space. Video games in general, the way that all the companies are doing it is you hide the cost, where there is actually a cost. There's actually a really high cost upon everybody, but you do it in a sneaky way where you hide the cost from the end user, where the meta quest is being sold at a loss. VR chat has never made money. They're trying to make money now, but historically it has never run a profit. You have a lot of these startup companies that will kind of put out something at a loss and try to capitalize on it later. This is true with YouTube and later streaming as well. Where we're not charging for the LARP, but maybe the organizer can make some of that money back through streaming in a way that's not visible. Right? It's like an invisible cost to the participants. And even server hosting. If you switch, every time you switch avatar in a VR chat world, that costs VR chat 1 cent every time you switch your avatar. In a full instance of people, and that adds up over the many thousands of people that are using this. And really, it's just venture capital is kind of bearing that cost for us all. And it really truly is an unsustainable model, and that is something that I would like to examine, because we will have to start examining it as VR chat is in the phase where they need to start not operating at a loss.
Money.
So yeah,
even
or otherwise it's going to disappear. So I think we have been sort of the recipients of basically a very, very big subsidies, essentially. That is a very unsustainable model that we have going.
Obviously, we just need to put AI into it. I'm joking, by the way. Entirely joking.
We got very derailed here, so we
yeah, sorry about that.
No, this is super exciting. What are the ecosystems within the different mediums is super exciting. Like as you said about that avatars can be a big expense, and maybe at some point some of the VR LARPs is that it's free to participate, but if you want a designed avatar, you can pay X amount, and then somebody within the community will get the benefit of both keeping the skill of that inside the community and getting better at it as well, instead of somebody outside the community. That could be sort of a way into to do that if it's interesting at all. There's been a lot of pushback in the LARP community also about people making money off it, and it is not really a scalable medium in many ways, at least not in the physical world.
Which I think is a good thing. Not everything
Very
has
good
to
thing.
scale. Yeah.
No. It's no. I don't. There's no interest in scaling this from my side at all. I don't remember what's left. How far I got.
Ego.
The experience.
Oh yeah. The main goal is to create meaningful experience for the participants. You can guide the experience, but you can never control it because the player is such a big part of what their experience will be. And that's also again where communication is so important, so people don't come into the experience having the wrong expectations, because then they will never get a good experience because their eyes are not open to what the possibilities are at the LARP. I've seen many LARPers that they play through the LARP so many times in their mind that when they then don't get what they have created in their mind, they focus on not getting that, so they don't see the potential interactions available to them in front of them, and then they get a bad experience. And that is sort of over preparing, I think, in many ways. And then there's this thing about, for your LARP to be well designed, all participants should have the same possibility for good experience. It doesn't mean the same. And I talked about this, about like that you need to have the same amount of potential for good experience, no matter where you are in the LARP. And then, of course, if you're playing Hamlet, you will get one experience that if you're not playing Hamlet, you cannot get, because there's not that focus within the story frame. But at least you need to be careful about all the other characters and what are their potential for a good experience. And then about claiming responsibility for people can have a great experience without them engaging with your design at all, and it's only because they are a great participant and they have great participants around you, and taking responsibility of that, or taking the responsibility of and like communicating that it comes from you and your design, I think is very dishonest. And since it is an extremely collaborative medium, especially around who is in control of what is the narrative arc of everybody, we need as designers to be extremely careful about what we claim responsibility for. I don't think that's really a road to go down on.
There's this tired old joke that the secret behind good LARP design is to get good LARPers, which means you're not really designing anything.
Exactly. Yeah, you can just get a bunch of good LARPers together in a location, and they will have a good time. But you know, don't claim that you've made a good LARP. It can be a good LARP, but it's just not it's not on you at all.
It's not because of your design, yeah.
No. Let's move on to next. Always take responsibility for participants' bad experience. It is because you have designed a bad experience for them. You have not communicated clearly to the participant that the LARP is not for them, or you have not given a potential participant enough information or space to be able to self-select not to participate. With that said, of course, there's always people who don't have the social skills or the understanding of being able to be in a LARP. Those people exist, but as an outset, you should always take responsibility that you didn't catch that early on, or you haven't communicated that in the best possible way. And I think it's a good sort of frame of reference to how you talk about when people have a bad experience. Not that you should give them, you should agree with why they're having a bad experience. Players rarely understand that, but at least acknowledge that they had a bad experience, and that there might be a lot of things you as a designer could have done to make sure that they had a better experience. And that will hopefully identify elements of the way you design your games so you can design better games next time. Of course, you can't save their experience. It has been bad, and that's just the way it is. And you just have to live with that as a designer, and that's fine. But at least use it for something to get better or more precise in your design.
I do actually have a question about this, because the way I usually interpret stuff like this as a kind of from like the perspective of a designer is that, like, you know, in theory, there are probably maybe some circumstances where things are out of your control, but that it's like, as a designer, if you start thinking about that, then you're not going to actually be able to like do anything or like iterate, right? It's like not really worth it to dwell on things that are out of your control. Like that's usually how I interpret stuff like this.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess.
Would it be a fair, also additional interpretation in your experience to say, but like, as it's always take responsibility for the participant's bad experience, but don't take it personally? Would that be a understandable like add-on? Because I believe absolutely this is a design you make to have people have good experiences. Whether people have a bad experience or not, it's still part of like within your design. Sometimes you may not have the immediate control or the foresight while you were planning to anticipate this person's bad experience. So, but I do believe there's still some accountability or responsibility regarding like the creation team or like the developments of the, you know, with the role play or the LARP. But it's not supposed to be like you are a bad person, you are a bad designer. It's just this person had a bad experience.
Yeah, and we've all gone through things that we love and just having had a bad day where you didn't connect with anybody, and it has nothing to do with the thing you went through. It's just you're having a bad day, and of course, if you are a generous person, you don't take it out on the people organizing the thing. But I think there's always something to learn when people don't connect with the thing and try to examine what we could have done differently, or what would have made the person enjoy it more than they did. So that it's sort of a learning opportunity. I think, as you said, we can definitely add that to it, and also add that they see it as a learning opportunity of improving the designs down the line and adjust, right?
We are officially out of time. I can't keep you here any longer. You're welcome to stay. Everybody's welcome to stay. But I just want to say officially, we've hit the mark. Yeah.
Yeah, we're usually this is the 2 hours. You can see the progress bar at the bottom as the video has.
We're about to get to my favorite part
slowly.
too.
These are all the things that some of them I have described. I don't think they're in the slide deck, but I'm working on it. And the question is, of course, what is missing? And there's many things. You can keep like dissecting these things all the way down to the smallest detail. And some of them might not have any meaning to actually write about. But let's focus on the ego thing, because that is sort of the final thing. The less ego you have invested in your LARP, the better it will become. And I think this goes for any creative endeavor. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't have strong opinions. I think it is your primary thing is to have strong opinions about your design. But if you feel personally attacked when people criticize your LARP or your design, that's where it goes wrong. You are not your work. And that goes for any, like your day job or any creative practices, that you are not your work. The work is the work. The design is the design. The LARP is the LARP, and you are something else. And of course, you should be passionate about what you do, I think. But again, it's not a personal attack. It's other people's opinions about something that you have done. And you always have the right to disagree. If you can't take advice, you will never become better. And I think this is a pitfall that you can fall in if you are very proficient in what you do. Your design will become stagnant and uninteresting if you're not willing to listen to advice. You can always disagree, but at least take the advice. Own all of your creation and take responsibility for it proudly and fully, even if parts that are heavily criticized or flawed. If you want to make LARPs on a specific topic and people think that that's despicable to do, fine. They have the right to have that opinion. If you can explain why it's important for you to do, then by all accounts, do it. As long as you're ready to like, there's consequences about doing anything in life, right? So it's not like a free pass that people won't like you afterwards if you make specific types of themes in a LARP or talk about specific content without being part of that culture, for example. You need to be explained why it's important more than it's cool to do. And only take credit for the parts you have actually designed. And I mentioned this quite a few times, that since LARPing is so collaborative, you shouldn't take credit for a lot of things that maybe has very little to do with you. And that is sort of the key question when people go, like, when I get feedback from a LARPs and people say that, you know, it has changed their life or it was the best LARP they've ever played, I of course say thank you, and I'm very flattered about that, but I'm also extremely aware that a lot of it has very little to do with what I have done and a lot to do with that I've created a framework where people could express themselves in a way that is new to them or important to them. And that is something that they have done and been brave about, and they should be proud about that, and I should not like own that. That is for other people. I'm glad to be able to facilitate experiences where people can come out of them and feel that it has changed them as a human being. But it's not about credit. It's more about being. For me, it's about being honored that you can be together with people when they are on that journey to maybe find a truer self or just having a good experience. It doesn't have to be profound, right? And then ask these questions about like why they feel that way and how try to see if you can dissect why the design. Is there any way the design sort of motivated or was a catalyst on that journey? And how can you replicate that with other people? I think it's good control questions. And I think the more you sort of focus on that you made a great LARP that people think is really great, the bigger the chances that your ego will grow. And with more ego, you make poorer creative work, I think. Yeah. I think maybe there's a quote at the end, or maybe a slide now. Oh yeah, the new designers thing. The best thing in the world for me is when people start designing, and some of the things that I struggled with in the beginning is like feeling that I was allowed to tell the stories I found interesting, and that means ignoring like other people's voice. Like all good ideas are stolen, I think that's a quote, and I think most of my designs or LARPs are elements from many hundred different things that I have stolen or moved on, like realized that this was interesting for me, and then finding the audience where that also finds the things that I find are interesting. And all the way back to my first LARP, I've always asked more experienced designers for advice, or if they made a LARP that looked like it, like what were their experience, what were the pitfalls, where did they fuck up, what could I learn from them? And the moment that you feel that you can't learn anything more, then it's time to give back by sharing your experience, just like we're doing today. And give it back to the community that has helped you become hopefully good at the thing you do. But if you are interested in design, then you should absolutely do it. And I think I can talk for all the designers who are here today. Is is that one of the things we love the most is to talk about design. Of course, make design, but also talk about it. And if people have questions about whatever design, it's always great fun to try to figure out ways of improving it. And then, of course, you can listen or not. That is not sort of the point. The point is that it's great to talk about this thing that is, at least for me, one of the most interesting thing to spend my time on, whether it's my own design or others. Let's take the next. Start small and work your way to your dream lab. I think the 4th or 5th lab I did was one of the first ideas I had, because I could see that there's no way I could make a lab at that size or that scale or with that production or whatever it is. Park it and look forward to making it at some point. And for at least for when we make labs in the physical world, and since everything can be designed, that also means that I think, I don't remember who said it, but that said that lab is not dangerous, but designing them definitely can be, because you can continuously make more and more detailed design and spend more and more time, and at some point you will burn out if you're not very careful. Yeah, and I already talked about the 3rd one. Let's see if there's one more. I think we have the Rick Rubin quote. When you believe the work before you is the single piece that will forever define you, it's difficult to let go. The urge for perfection is overwhelming. It's too much. We are frozen, and sometimes end up convincing ourselves that discarding the entire work is the only way to move forward. This is sort of the trap of creating art, is that you want it to be perfect. I have never created anything perfect. I have also stopped on projects that I probably should have finished. But I try to live by sort of this mindset of it doesn't have to be perfect, it just have to be good. And there's a big difference between those two things. And it's better that you get something done and then move on to the next thing, because at least for me, where LARP is definitely a calling in a way, is that I will continue to make LARPs all my life. The one single LARP is not, it's not about making the best, the most perfect LARP. It's about making a great LARP so I can make the next great LARP that hopefully will be better than the previous one, because I've learned something new. And the way I choose ideas now are like, what are the things I haven't done, and where are the biggest potential to learn? Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Coming.
I'm very appreciative.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. And now you don't have to cringe out of guilt next time you see me.
No, that's good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, is that going on?
Yeah, I met Bjarke at the KP conference, and he was like, "Oh no," trying to finish his breakfast.
Yeah, keep sending me very very nice mails that are very friendly without any guilt tripping at all. It's just that is projecting.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Bjarke.
Thank
this was
you.
fantastic.
This was great. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you so
And
much.
if any of you have any questions or anything, just throw me a mail.
Oh, we'll get
I would love to talk more, of course, because this is fun.
Do you want to post your email in the Toolshed server on Discord?
I think I think it's at the end of the slides, and I posted the slides. But,
okay.
The video has now disappeared, but I did post the slides, and it's at the very end.
Good. Yes. And if you don't hear an answer on an email, just keep poking and sending me beautiful, insisting emails.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My best to York as well.
I will.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have
Had a large impact on this community.
And some claps.
Unrelated, it's Mother's Day.